Overnight, one person went to the hospital after a house fire in Inglewood. The Denver Fire Department says when they got there late last night, there was heavy black smoke coming from the front door. Crews are still investigating how this fire started.
Right now, the search is on for a Jefferson County inmate who walked away from the jail. Deputies say Jeremy Buchanan was working in the kitchen on Saturday when he left through a delivery door and jumped over a fence. He was being held for motor vehicle theft and several drug offenses. If you see him or you know where he is, you are asked to call 911.
The mother of a man charged for a road rage shooting that killed 2 people says her son shouldn't be in jail. Stephanie Wesley spoke to the Denver City Council last night. She says her son, Stephon Long, is being held in a $1 million bond for the shooting. Denver police say 2 men in a car cut off Long on I-25 near 6th Avenue back on June 13th. Long told investigators both men walked up to his window and started hitting him. Long then shot and killed them both and drove away. He was arrested shortly after. His mother says her son was just defending himself.
We believe in our constitutional rights. Stephon had the right to defend himself against his attackers. We see far too often in this country where white people randomly attack and kill Black people with little to no consequence. At what point was my son entitled to his right to self-defense? How badly did he need to be beaten before his right to self-defend became a valid one?
She also says her son has no criminal record. Wesley is now calling on council to ask the district attorney to drop the charges.
The city of Denver estimates more people in the city could face eviction this year than ever before. 9 News reporter Courtney Yoon is live now in Denver. And Courtney, when it comes to finding help for people who are facing eviction, it doesn't really seem like there's a whole lot out there.
Yeah, that's right, Jordan. The city of Denver said last year they had $20 million to help renters. $17 million of that was state and federal funding from the pandemic. That money is now gone. The city says they're going to try to fill that gap with city funds, but they'll still fall short by about $8 million. Now, Denver is expecting a record number, around 12,000 eviction filings this year. That beats the previous peak of around 10,000 back in 2010 during the Great Recession. Housing navigators at the Colorado Housing Connects program say they've received a record number of calls for help. The program's director, Pat Noonan, says increasing rents and economic pressure on lower income families have combined, making rent harder to afford and pay.
There's other reporting about rising credit card debt, other reporting around dwindling savings. And so if you take that in conjunction with less assistance available to people, it speaks to an even greater crisis ahead.
And Noonan says it doesn't help that student loan repayments have just started back up again, but he says he is hopeful with the efforts of building new affordable housing that over time may help. He says in the meantime, Colorado Housing Connects is going to continue helping out renters get connected to housing assistance programs. Jordan.
All right, Courtney, thank you.
In the last 24 hours, almost 300 new migrants arrived in Denver. More than 2,500 migrants are in shelters across the city right now. Denver is so overwhelmed by this new surge, it asked the governor to call in the National Guard. The state said no, but sent 40 civilians to help out. The city is struggling to make enough room for everyone, so starting tomorrow, it's going to shorten shelter stays for adults. Most will get 2 weeks in a city shelter instead of 3, though families with kids will be able to stay in shelters another week. The city is working with nonprofits to help people into more permanent housing or get bus tickets to other places. The governor's office told us it can only send in the National Guard to help if there's a state of emergency. Democratic Governor Polis says he has no plans to issue one, and Denver let its emergency declaration expire before this latest surge.
Just 1 day to go until Kaiser Permanente workers could go on strike. The company and the union have until tomorrow to reach a deal, and it could be the largest healthcare strike in U.S. history, with 6,800 Kaiser workers here in Colorado and thousands more in other states. Unions say they want better staffing levels, a pay raise, and for the hospital to address gaps in patient care. The coalition was still negotiating when their contract with the company expired over the weekend. The two sides still have not reached a deal. Leaders at Kaiser say they have reached a couple of tentative agreements, like using traveling nurses and tracking staffing vacancies, and they are optimistic that they can reach a deal. Now, if workers do strike, Kaiser says their urgent care clinics will stay open.
It turns out Frontier Airlines has not reached a settlement on a discrimination lawsuit after all. Federal regulators had announced a settlement on Friday, but now they say they spoke too soon. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's settlement with Frontier would require the airline to better accommodate pregnant or breastfeeding pilots. A lawyer lawyer for the EEOC says announcing the deal too early might actually hurt plans for a settlement. We asked Frontier if they're still willing to make changes to assist pilots who are pregnant and breastfeeding. They wouldn't answer any of our questions.
Former President Donald Trump is planning to be back in court today as part of a civil fraud trial. This one centers around his business. The New York Attorney General filed a lawsuit saying Trump and his sons have been exaggerating their business assets for years. This is the second day in a row that Trump will be in court. Yesterday, Trump called the trial a horrible situation.
And there's no case here. There's no victim. The banks aren't a victim. The insurance companies are a victim. Everybody got paid. It's a terrible, terrible thing. This was for politics.
The trial is expected to last around 3 months. Trump will likely be called to testify.
The Supreme Court will not take up a case that challenges whether Trump is eligible to run for president again. Republican presidential candidate John Castro filed this case. Castro argued that Trump couldn't run because of the 14th Amendment, which bans anyone from holding office if they aid or engage in an insurrection. Castro lost in a lower court. This is a different case than the one here in Colorado, which also uses the 14th Amendment argument. Some legal experts say the challenge filed in Colorado and another in Minnesota may have stronger arguments for using the amendment to disqualify Trump.
Florida Representative Matt Gaetz is trying to remove Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy from his job. Part of the reason is because McCarthy worked alongside Democrats to help prevent a government shutdown. Gaetz says he has enough votes from Republicans to force McCarthy to give up his seat. Democrats have not spoken much about whether they'll support McCarthy, but he is expected to make a procedural move that would stop this from happening. So far, McCarthy has only responded with one sentence on social media, quote, "Bring it on."
Continuing coverage this morning, leaders with the Screen Actors Guild is planning to meet with studios this week. Actors have been on strike since July 14th. They started negotiating again yesterday and say their demands still haven't changed. Some of their biggest demands, better residual payments and protections against artificial intelligence.
Actors are already concerned about how people are using AI, and Tom Hanks says he did not give his permission for an artificial intelligence version of himself to be used in a dental plan promotional video. Hanks posted this photo on Instagram Sunday of an apparent AI likeness depicting his younger self, though it's not clear if it came from the dental plan ad. He says he has nothing to do with the ad.
And one thing you want to know about the weather today, much cooler than yesterday's 85-degree reading. Here are the highs along the Front Range, only in the 60s and lower 70s. We do have a chance for a few scattered storms. And then tomorrow, we'll see partly cloudy skies, but little change in the temperatures, upper 60s and lower 70s.